The fluorescent lights burned Natalie's eyes as consciousness crept back in painful waves. She blinked against the harsh brightness, her head pounding like someone had taken a hammer to her skull. Where was she? The ceiling tiles were stained and cracked, nothing like the smooth white ceiling of her bedroom at home. She tried to sit up, but her body felt heavy and wrong. Her mouth tasted like copper and chemicals. As her vision cleared, Natalie realized she was lying on a thin mattress in a room filled with other beds. Women's voices echoed around her, unfamiliar and distant. The smell of industrial cleaner and too many bodies in one space made her stomach turn. Easy now, honey. You're safe here. A gentle hand touched her shoulder. An older black woman with kind eyes and silver hair looked down at her with concern. I'm Dorothy, the night director. You've been out for almost 6 hours. 6 hours? Natalie's voice came out cracked and raw. She looked down at herself and felt a jolt of horror. She was still wearing her good jeans and the pink sweater Derek had bought her for her birthday, but they were rumpled and dirty. Her feet were bare except for one sock. Where am I? What happened? Dorothy's face softened with sympathy. You're at Haven House. It's a women's shelter downtown. A man dropped you off at the door around 3 this morning. He said you had nowhere else to go and drove away before anyone could ask questions. The words hit Natalie like physical blows. Shelter. Dropped off. Drove away. Memories started flooding back in sickening fragments. Derek's face twisted in disgust as he shoved her into the car. The bitter taste of the tea he'd made her drink, insisting it would help her headache. The way the world had gone fuzzy and tilted as he drove through dark streets. His voice, cold and flat, saying words that still felt unreal. You're worthless, Natalie. Always have been. I'm done wasting my money keeping you comfortable. Veronica deserves everything you have, and she's going to get it. My husband, Natalie whispered, touching her left hand. Her wedding ring was gone. The simple gold band Derek had placed there 3 years ago had vanished, leaving only a pale indent on her finger. Derek brought me here. But why? We have a home. We have. Honey, do you have any family you can call? Dorothy interrupted gently. Someone who can come get you? Natalie's mind spun. Family. She had no one. Her mother had died when she was 7, leaving her in foster care. She'd bounced between homes until she aged out at 18. Derek knew all of this. He'd seemed so understanding when they met, so caring about her difficult past. He'd promised to be her family, to give her the stability she'd never had. He'd lied. I don't understand, Natalie said, her voice breaking. We were fine yesterday. We had dinner together. He said he loved me. Why would he drug me and dump me here like trash? Dorothy sat on the edge of the bed, her expression sad but unsurprised. I've been running this shelter for 23 years. I've seen a lot of things. Men who get tired of their wives. Men who want to start fresh with someone new. Men who think they can just throw away the women who trusted them. But Derek isn't like that. He wouldn't. Natalie stopped as another memory surfaced. Derek on his phone late at night, speaking in low tones. The strange charges on their credit card that he'd explained away. The way he'd discouraged her from working, saying he made enough money for both of them. The way he'd slowly isolated her from the few friends she'd made. She trusted him completely. She'd given him access to everything. Oh God. Natalie's hands started shaking. Our bank account. I need to check our bank account. Let's get you steady first, Dorothy said. Then we'll figure out the next steps. Do you have your phone? Natalie patted her pockets frantically. Nothing. No phone, no wallet, no keys. Derek had taken everything except the clothes on her back. She was completely cut off, completely vulnerable. Exactly the way he wanted her. He planned this, Natalie whispered. He planned all of this. Dorothy nodded slowly. It seems that way. But you're not alone now. We'll help you figure this out. First thing tomorrow we'll get you to the police station. We'll file reports. We'll get you connected with resources. Natalie looked around the shelter with new eyes. 20 women sleeping in beds around her, each with their own story of betrayal or violence or loss. She'd become one of them overnight. The life she'd thought was solid had been nothing but smoke, and Derek had blown it away without a second thought. There's something you should know, Dorothy said quietly. The man who dropped you off? He was with a woman. She stayed in the car, but I saw her through the windshield. Young blonde, laughing. She was wearing expensive jewelry. Veronica. The name from Derek's cruel goodbye echoed in Natalie's memory. She didn't know anyone named Veronica. How long had Derek been planning this betrayal? How long had he been lying to her face while plotting to throw her away? Natalie lay back down on the thin mattress, her whole body trembling. The ceiling swam above her and the sounds of the shelter felt surreal. 24 hours ago she'd been safe in her home, believing in her marriage, trusting the man who'd promised to love her forever. Now she had nothing. No home, no money, no belongings. Just the clothes on her back and the crushing weight of Derek's betrayal. But as Natalie closed her eyes against the burning tears, something else stirred beneath the pain. Something cold and sharp and focused. Derek thought he'd destroyed her. He thought she'd simply disappear into the system, another forgotten woman with no one to fight for her. He had no idea who she really was. And more importantly, he had no idea who she was about to become. Morning came too quickly. Natalie jerked awake to the sounds of shuffling feet and quiet conversations. Women were moving through the shelter, some heading to jobs, others lining up for breakfast in the communal dining area. The reality of her situation crashed over her again, making it hard to breathe. Dorothy appeared beside her bed holding a plastic bag. "I found these outside the front door this morning. Your name was written on the bag." Natalie took the bag with shaking hands. Inside were a few items of clothing, thrown in carelessly: 2 shirts, a pair of sweatpants, mismatched socks. At the bottom, she found her old sneakers and a battered envelope she didn't recognize. Everything else she owned was gone. 3 years of marriage, and this trash bag was all Derek had deemed worthy of keeping. "There's a shower down the hall," Dorothy said gently. "Take your time. When you're ready, I'll introduce you to Camille. She's our social worker and she's helped many women in your situation." 30 minutes later, wearing clean clothes from the bag and feeling slightly more human, Natalie sat across from Camille in a small office. Camille was a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s with close-cropped natural hair and an expression that said she'd heard every story and believed every word. "Tell me everything," Camille said, pulling out a notepad. "Start from the beginning." Natalie's story spilled out in fragments. Meeting Derek 4 years ago at a coffee shop where she worked. His charm, his attention, his promises. The whirlwind romance. The small wedding with just a few of his friends present. Moving into his apartment and giving up her job because he said he wanted to take care of her. "Did you have access to bank accounts?" Camille asked. "We had a joint account," Natalie said. "But Derek handled all the finances. He said I didn't need to worry about money." Camille's expression darkened. "And you signed papers? Legal documents?" "Sometimes." Natalie's stomach sank. "Derek would bring home paperwork and ask me to sign. He said it was for taxes or insurance. I trusted him, so I just signed where he showed me." "We need to find out what you signed," Camille said firmly. "This sounds like financial fraud on top of abandonment." "Did Derek have your social security number?" "Of course. We're married." "Were you on the lease? Did you own anything together?" Natalie shook her head miserably. "The apartment was his before we met. He said we'd buy a house together eventually, but the market was bad. I don't own anything. I don't even have a driver's license anymore. It expired last year and Derek kept saying we'd go renew it, but we never did." Camille wrote rapidly, her jaw tight. "Natalie, I need you to understand something. What Derek did to you is illegal on multiple levels. The drugging alone is assault. Add financial fraud, identity theft potentially, and abandonment. We're going to the police today and we're going to start documenting everything." "But I don't have proof," Natalie said desperately. "I don't have anything. It's just my word against his." "The shelter has security cameras," Camille countered. "We have footage of him dropping you off while you were clearly incapacitated. That's evidence. We'll get your medical records showing drugs in your system. We'll pull bank records. Derek made a massive mistake thinking you'd just disappear." Hope flickered in Natalie's chest, small but real. "You believe me?" "I believe you," Camille said firmly. "And we're going to fight back. But first I need to ask, is there anyone Derek doesn't know about? Any family connection, no matter how distant?" Sometimes abusers isolate their victims so completely that the victims forget they have people who care. "No one," Natalie said. "My mother died when I was 7. I never knew my father. No siblings, no aunts or uncles. I was in foster care until I turned 18. Derek knows all of this. That's why he felt safe doing this to me." Camille studied her for a long moment. "Your mother, did she have family?" "I don't know. She never talked about her past. It was just the 2 of us until she got sick." "What was her name?" "Rebecca Morgan." Natalie frowned, trying to remember details from so long ago. "She worked as a waitress. We moved around a lot. I remember she always seemed sad, like she was running from something." "Did she leave you anything? Papers, photos, documents?" Natalie started to shake her head, then remembered the envelope in the trash bag. Wait, there was something. She retrieved the bag from beside her chair and pulled out the battered envelope. It was yellowed with age, the seal still intact. Her mother's handwriting on the front read, "For Natalie, open when you're ready to know the truth." "I found this in a box of my mother's things when I turned 18, Natalie explained, staring at the envelope. "But I was too scared to open it. What if it was something terrible? What if she wrote that she didn't want me? I kept it all these years but could never bring myself to look." "Maybe now is the time," Camille said softly. With trembling fingers, Natalie broke the seal. Inside was a single piece of paper covered in her mother's familiar looping handwriting, and a small photograph. The photo showed her mother as a young woman, maybe 20 years old, standing beside an older man in an expensive suit. They were in front of a massive building with Caldwell Industries emblazoned above the entrance. Both were smiling, but her mother's smile looked strained. Natalie read the letter aloud, her voice shaking. "My dearest Natalie, if you're reading this, I'm gone and you're old enough to understand. I'm sorry for all the secrets. I'm sorry for the life I gave you. The truth is I came from money. A lot of money. My father is Harrison Caldwell, the CEO of Caldwell Industries. But his wealth came with strings I couldn't live with. He wanted to control everything, my career, my relationships, my entire life. When I got pregnant with you, he demanded I give you up. He said a child would ruin my future. I refused and ran. I chose you over everything and I've never regretted it. But I've always worried that I took you from a life of security. If you're reading this and you need help, find him. Tell him who you are. His money comes with chains, but it's better than having nothing. Your father was a good man named Thomas and he died before he knew about you. You deserve to know where you come from, even if I couldn't give you that world. I love you forever, Mom." The letter ended with an address and phone number for Caldwell Industries. Natalie stared at the paper, her entire world tilting on its axis. Caldwell Industries. That's one of the biggest companies in the country. This can't be real. Camille had gone very still. "Natalie, Harrison Caldwell is one of the richest men in America. If what your mother wrote is true, if you're really his granddaughter." "But why would she run from that?" Natalie interrupted. "Why would she choose poverty and struggling over wealth?" "Because some cages are golden," Camille said quietly. "But they're still cages. Your mother chose freedom and chose you. That took incredible courage." Natalie looked at the photo again, really studying her mother's face. The resemblance was undeniable. She had her mother's eyes, her mother's cheekbones. And now that she looked at the older man, she could see traces of her own features there too. The shape of the jaw, the set of the shoulders. "Derek has no idea," Natalie whispered. "He thought I was nobody. He thought I had nothing and no one." "But if this is real," Camille said, leaning forward intently, "you have everything. You have family. You have resources. You have power Derek can't even imagine." Natalie's hands tightened on the letter. Derek had drugged her, stolen from her, and thrown her away like garbage. He'd done it because he thought she was powerless and alone. He thought he could get away with it because she had no one to fight for her. He'd made the biggest mistake of his life. "I need to make a phone call," Natalie said, her voice steadier than it had been in days. "I need to find out if Harrison Caldwell is really my grandfather. And if he is, I need to tell him what Derek did." Camille smiled, fierce and proud. "Now you're thinking like a survivor. Let's go make that call." The library computers were ancient, but they worked. Natalie sat in front of the screen with Camille beside her, fingers hovering over the keyboard. A simple internet search had already confirmed that Harrison Caldwell was real, powerful, and worth billions. The screen showed article after article about Caldwell Industries, tech innovations, real estate developments, pharmaceutical research. Harrison's face stared back at her from a recent Forbes profile, an elderly man with steel gray hair, sharp eyes, and her mother's nose. "Look at this," Camille said, clicking on another article. The headline read, "Billionaire's decades-long search for missing daughter continues." Natalie read the article with growing disbelief. Harrison Caldwell had been searching for his daughter Rebecca for over 25 years. He'd hired private investigators, offered rewards, never given up hope. The article mentioned that Rebecca had disappeared in her 20s after a bitter argument, and Harrison had spent millions trying to find her. "He didn't know she died," Natalie whispered. "He's been looking for her all this time. And he's been looking for you," Camille added. "You just didn't know it." Natalie stared at the phone number on her mother's letter. One call could change everything. But what if it was a mistake? What if Harrison rejected her, or didn't believe her, or wanted nothing to do with the granddaughter he'd never met? "I'm scared," Natalie admitted. What if he's cruel like my mother said? What if the money really does come with chains? Then you walk away, Camille said firmly. You're not a child anymore. You're an adult who can make her own choices. But you deserve to know the truth. You deserve to know if you have family out there. Natalie thought about Derek's face as he dumped her at the shelter. His contempt, his certainty that she had nowhere to go and no one to turn to. She thought about Veronica laughing in the car, probably wearing jewelry bought with money stolen from their joint account. She picked up the library phone and dialed the number on the letter. Her heart hammered as it rang once, twice, 3 times. Caldwell Industries Executive Office. A crisp female voice answered. How may I direct your call? Natalie's mouth went dry. I need to speak with Harrison Caldwell. It's personal. Mr. Caldwell doesn't take unsolicited personal calls. If you'd like to schedule an appointment with his assistant. Please, Natalie interrupted, her voice cracking. Tell him it's about his daughter Rebecca. Tell him Rebecca's daughter needs to speak with him. There was a long pause. Hold please. The hold music seemed to last forever. Camille squeezed Natalie's shoulder encouragingly. Other library patrons typed and read around them, oblivious to the moment that was about to change Natalie's entire life. The music cut off abruptly. A male voice, elderly but strong, came on the line. This is Harrison Caldwell. Who is this? My name is Natalie Morgan, she said, her voice trembling. Rebecca Morgan was my mother. She died 18 years ago and I never knew about you until yesterday. I found a letter she left me. Silence stretched across the line. Then very quietly, Rebecca is dead? She had cancer. I was 7. I'm so sorry. Harrison made a sound that might have been a sob or a sharp intake of breath. And you're her daughter? Her child? Yes. I have a photo of the two of you together and a letter she wrote. She said you were my grandfather. Where are you? Harrison's voice had changed, becoming urgent and commanding. Are you safe? Are you okay? Natalie laughed bitterly. I'm at a homeless shelter. My husband drugged me and dumped me here 2 days ago. He stole everything I had. I have nothing. She heard Harrison's sharp intake of breath. Give me the address. I'm sending people to you right now. Don't move. Don't go anywhere. How do I know you're really? Your mother had a birthmark on her left shoulder, Harrison interrupted. Shaped like a crescent moon. She hated it when she was young, but I told her it made her special. She had my mother's eyes, gray-green like storm clouds. She loved strawberry ice cream but was allergic to chocolate. When she was 6, she fell out of a tree and broke her arm, and she made me sign her cast with a purple marker. Tears streamed down Natalie's face. Those details weren't in any news article. They were real memories from a father who'd loved his daughter. She chose you over everything, Harrison continued, his voice thick with emotion. She chose poverty and struggle and hardship over the life I offered because she wanted to protect you. And I lost both of you because I was too stubborn and controlling to let her make her own choices. I've regretted that every day for 25 years. I'm at Haven House, Natalie said, giving him the address. But I don't understand what happens now. Now you let me help you, Harrison said firmly. I failed your mother. I won't fail you. My lawyers will be there within the hour. They'll bring everything you need, legal representation, documentation, resources. And Natalie? That husband of yours made a very big mistake. You're not alone anymore. You have family. You have me. The call ended and Natalie sat staring at the phone. Camille was grinning broadly. Did that just happen? Natalie whispered. That just happened, Camille confirmed. You just went from having nothing to having one of the most powerful men in the country as your grandfather. 45 minutes later, 3 black SUVs pulled up outside Haven House. Men and women in expensive suits emerged, carrying briefcases and tablets. Dorothy met them at the door with wide eyes. The lead attorney, a sharp-faced woman named Patricia Chen, found Natalie in the common room. Miss Morgan? I'm Patricia Chen from Caldwell Industries Legal Department. Mr. Caldwell has instructed us to provide you with complete support. First, we need to verify your identity. We have DNA specialists with us who can perform a rapid test. Everything happened so fast. Natalie provided a DNA sample with a simple cheek swab. Patricia explained that they had comparison samples from Harrison on file for exactly this purpose. He'd been hoping for decades that someone claiming to be Rebecca's child might appear. While they waited for the results, Patricia's team got to work. They took Natalie's statement about Derek, recorded every detail of the drugging and abandonment. They photographed the trash bag of belongings, documented her lack of phone and identification, pulled security footage from the shelter. "This is an open and shut case," Patricia said grimly. "Your husband committed multiple felonies. We'll have him arrested within 24 hours. "That fast?" Natalie asked. "Mr. Caldwell has extensive connections with law enforcement," Patricia said. "And what happened to you is a serious crime. Your husband won't see this coming." 2 hours after the DNA test, Patricia's phone rang. She answered, listened, and smiled. "The results are in. There's a 99.97% probability that you're Harrison Caldwell's biological granddaughter. Congratulations, Ms. Morgan. You're an heiress." Natalie felt the world tilt. Heiress. Family. Power. Everything Derek thought she didn't have. "Mr. Caldwell wants to meet you," Patricia said. "He's on his way here now. He said he won't wait another moment to meet his granddaughter." 30 minutes later, a silver Rolls-Royce pulled up outside the shelter. Dorothy, Camille, and half the women staying there watched through the windows as an elderly man emerged, moving quickly despite his age. Harrison Caldwell stepped through the shelter doors and stopped, scanning the room. His eyes found Natalie, and his face crumpled with emotion. "You look just like her," he whispered. "Just like my Rebecca." Natalie stood frozen as Harrison approached. He stopped a few feet away as if afraid she might disappear if he moved too fast. "May I hug you?" he asked quietly. "I've dreamed of meeting you for so long, but I'll understand if you need time." Natalie didn't answer with words. She stepped forward and let her grandfather wrap her in his arms. He smelled like expensive cologne and something else, something that felt safe and solid. He held her like she was precious, like she mattered. "I'm so sorry about your mother," Harrison said, his voice breaking. "I'm so sorry I wasn't there for either of you. But I'm here now, and I promise you'll never be alone again." Around them, the shelter had gone completely silent. Women who'd seen every kind of hardship watched this reunion with tears in their eyes. "My husband thinks I'm nobody," Natalie said into Harrison's shoulder. "He thinks he can throw me away and start over with his girlfriend. He has no idea who I really am." Harrison pulled back and looked at her with eyes that had built an empire through steel and strategy. "Then let's show him exactly who you are. Let's show him what happens when you hurt a Caldwell." Harrison insisted on taking Natalie to his penthouse immediately, but she surprised him by asking for one thing first. "I want to thank everyone here," Natalie said, looking around the shelter. "Dorothy and Camille saved my life. They believed me when I had nothing. They gave me hope when Derek wanted me to have none. I won't forget that." Harrison's expression softened with something that looked like pride. "Your mother had that same loyalty. Once Rebecca cared about someone, she never forgot them." Dorothy waved away Natalie's thanks with tears in her eyes. "You go live your life, honey. But remember, the door here is always open if you need us." "I'll be back," Natalie promised. Not as someone who needs help, but as someone who can give it. The ride to Harrison's penthouse was surreal. Natalie sat in the back of the Rolls-Royce, watching the city pass by through tinted windows. Patricia sat across from them, already working on her tablet, building the case against Derek. "We've located your husband," Patricia said without looking up. "He's living in a condo downtown registered to someone named Veronica Pierce. We've confirmed she's 23 years old and works as a receptionist at a dental office. They've been together for at least 8 months based on social media posts." 8 months. Natalie felt sick. Derek had been planning this betrayal for 8 months while telling Natalie he loved her every day. "What about the money?" Harrison asked. "The joint account was emptied 3 days before the abandonment," Patricia reported. "Approximately $47,000 transferred to an account in Derek Morgan's name only. We're also finding evidence of credit cards opened in Natalie's name without her knowledge. He's racked up about $30,000 in debt under her social security number." "Identity theft," Harrison said grimly. "Add it to the charges." "Already done," Patricia confirmed. "We're also investigating the documents Natalie signed. If he forged her signature on anything or had her sign under false pretenses, that's fraud." Natalie stared out the window, trying to process it all. 3 days ago, she'd been living what she thought was a normal life. Now she was learning that every piece of that life had been a lie. "Why did he do this?" Natalie asked quietly. "If he wanted to leave, why not just divorce me? Why go to all this trouble?" Harrison's jaw tightened. "Because he's a coward who wanted your money and your identity without the burden of actually supporting you. Men like Derek see women as resources to exploit, not people to respect. He thought he could use you up and throw you away with no consequences." "He was wrong," Patricia added with a sharp smile. "Very, very wrong." The penthouse took up the entire top floor of one of the city's most exclusive buildings. Natalie stepped out of the elevator into a space that looked like something from a magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of the entire city. The furniture was elegant but comfortable, and original artwork lined the walls. "This is overwhelming," Natalie admitted. "I know," Harrison said gently. "But you don't have to adjust overnight. Take your time. This is your home now for as long as you want it." A woman in her 50s appeared from one of the hallways. She had kind eyes and a warm smile. "Mr. Caldwell, welcome home. And you must be Natalie. I'm Helen, the house manager. I've prepared the guest suite for you." "Helen's been with me for 20 years, Harrison explained. "She keeps this place running and keeps me from working myself to death." Helen showed Natalie to a bedroom that was bigger than the entire apartment she'd shared with Derek. The closet was already stocked with clothes in her size. "How did you know my size?" Natalie asked. "The shelter director provided your measurements," Helen said. "Mr. Caldwell wanted you to have options immediately. These are just temporary until you can shop for what you really want." After Helen left, Natalie stood in the middle of the room trying to ground herself. Yesterday she'd woken up in a homeless shelter with nothing but a trash bag of belongings. Today she was standing in luxury beyond anything she'd imagined, her billionaire grandfather down the hall, a team of lawyers working to bring down the man who'd betrayed her. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Harrison entered hesitantly. "May I come in?" "It's your home," Natalie said. "No," Harrison corrected gently. "It's our home now. Your family, Natalie. That means this is yours as much as mine." He sat in one of the chairs by the window and gestured for her to take the other. For a long moment they just looked at each other, two strangers connected by blood and loss. "Tell me about my mother," Natalie said finally. "Tell me who she really was." Harrison's eyes grew distant with memory. Rebecca was brilliant and stubborn and fierce. She got into Harvard at 16, wanted to study medicine. But I pushed too hard. I wanted her to take over the company, to follow the path I'd laid out. We fought about everything, her career, her friends, her choices. I thought I was protecting her, but I was suffocating her. What happened when she got pregnant with me? Harrison's face twisted with old pain. She came to me scared and hopeful. The father was a graduate student named Thomas. He died in a car accident before she knew about you. I reacted badly. I told her a child would ruin her future, that she should put you up for adoption. I said terrible things I've regretted every day since. She chose me, Natalie whispered. She chose you, Harrison confirmed. She walked out that day and I never saw her again. I tried to find her, hired investigators, offered rewards. But Rebecca was smart. She knew how to disappear. She changed her name, moved constantly, made sure I could never track her down. She was protecting me from you. Yes, and I can't blame her for that. I was controlling and arrogant. I thought money could solve everything, that my way was the only right way. Losing Rebecca taught me that some things matter more than empires and profits. Family matters. Love matters. Freedom matters. Natalie studied her grandfather's face, seeing genuine remorse there. My mother's letter said your money came with chains. It did. It does, Harrison admitted. Wealth brings pressure and expectations. People will want things from you now. They'll treat you differently. Some will resent you, others will try to use you. But here's what I learned too late with your mother. Chains only have power if you let them. You can take what I offer and use it on your own terms. You don't have to be me. You don't have to follow my path. You just have to be yourself. I don't know who that is anymore, Natalie said quietly. Derek spent 3 years telling me I was worthless. That I was lucky he put up with me. That no one else would want me. I started to believe him. Harrison's expression hardened. Derek is a liar and a criminal. Every word he said was designed to control you, to make you dependent on him. But you survived, Natalie. You're sitting here ready to fight back. That's not weakness. That's strength. A soft knock interrupted them. Patricia entered with her tablet. We have news. The police have issued arrest warrants for Derek Morgan and Veronica Pierce. Multiple charges: assault, fraud, identity theft, conspiracy to commit fraud. The district attorney is very interested in this case. When will they arrest him? Natalie asked. Tomorrow morning, Patricia said with satisfaction. They're watching the condo now. Derek and Veronica have no idea what's coming. Natalie felt a strange mix of emotions. Part of her wanted to feel sorry for Derek, wanted to believe the man she'd married was still in there somewhere. But then she remembered waking up in the shelter, remembered the contempt in his voice, remembered him stealing her identity and throwing her away like trash. I want to be there, Natalie said suddenly, when they arrest him. I want Derek to see my face and know he messed with the wrong woman. Harrison smiled, fierce and proud. That's my granddaughter. We'll make sure you're there. And Natalie? This is just the beginning. Once we destroy the criminal case against him, we're coming for him civilly. By the time we're done, Derek Morgan will regret the day he ever heard your name. The next morning, Natalie woke in a bed so comfortable she thought she was dreaming. Then memories flooded back and she realized it was all real. She was in Harrison's penthouse. She had a family. And today Derek was going to pay. Helen brought breakfast to her room, fresh fruit, pastries, coffee that tasted nothing like the bitter brew from the shelter. Natalie ate mechanically, her stomach in knots despite the luxury surrounding her. Patricia arrived at 8 with another member of Harrison's legal team, a sharp-eyed man named Jerome Walker. We're ready to present everything to the police, Patricia said, spreading documents across Harrison's dining table. The evidence is overwhelming. But Natalie, I need to prepare you. When Derek sees you today, he's going to try to manipulate you. He'll apologize, cry, make excuses. Abusers always do when they're caught. I won't fall for it, Natalie said firmly. Good. Because he doesn't deserve your forgiveness. He deserves justice. Jerome pulled up security footage on his laptop. We need to show you something. We've been investigating Derek's background and it's worse than we thought. The screen showed footage from various locations. Derek and Veronica in restaurants, laughing together. Derek using Natalie's credit cards at jewelry stores, buying expensive gifts for Veronica. Derek at a bank, forging Natalie's signature on loan documents. He's done this before, Jerome said grimly. We found 2 previous marriages. Same pattern each time. Marry a woman with some assets, isolate her, steal everything, disappear. The first wife didn't press charges because she was too ashamed. The second wife tried, but Derek had already hidden the money and she couldn't afford lawyers to fight him. Natalie felt cold all over. I was just another target? He never loved me at all. No, Patricia said bluntly. Derek Morgan is a predator who targets vulnerable women. He researched you, found out you were a foster kid with no family, and saw an easy mark. Everything he told you was a lie designed to gain your trust and access to your finances. But I barely had any money, Natalie protested. I worked at a coffee shop. You had decent credit and a social security number, Jerome explained. Derek opened credit cards, took out loans, racked up debt, all in your name. He was planning to declare bankruptcy under your identity and walk away clean with Veronica. The shelter abandonment was the final step. If you just disappeared into the system with no one looking for you, he would have gotten away with it. Harrison had been listening silently, his face dark with controlled fury. But he picked the wrong victim this time. He had no idea Natalie had family who would fight for her. At 10 o'clock, they left for Derek's condo. Patricia had arranged for Natalie to watch the arrest from an unmarked police car parked across the street. 2 police units waited nearby, ready to move in. Natalie's hands shook as she waited. Part of her still couldn't believe this was happening. 3 days ago, Derek had controlled her entire life. Now she was about to watch him be arrested for what he'd done. Are you sure you want to see this? Harrison asked gently from beside her. You don't have to be here. Yes, I do, Natalie said. I need to see his face when he realizes he didn't win. At 10:15, Derek emerged from the condo building. He was dressed casually, looking relaxed and happy. Veronica walked beside him, wearing designer clothes and laughing at something he said. They looked like any normal couple enjoying a morning together, with no hint of the crimes they'd committed. The police moved fast. 2 officers stepped in front of Derek while 2 more flanked him from behind. Natalie watched Derek's face change from confusion to shock as the officers identified themselves. Derek Morgan, you're under arrest for assault, fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent. Derek's eyes went wide. He started talking rapidly, gesturing wildly. Beside him, Veronica looked panicked. When the officers moved to handcuff Derek, he actually tried to run. It was pathetic. He made it maybe 10 feet before officers tackled him gently to the ground. That's when Patricia made her move. She stepped out of the police car and Natalie followed. Derek. Patricia called out. Derek Morgan. Derek's head snapped up. His eyes found Patricia first, then slid to Natalie standing beside her. The color drained from his face. No, Derek whispered. No, that's impossible. Natalie walked closer, flanked by Patricia and 2 officers. She looked down at Derek, handcuffed on the ground, and felt something shift inside her. She wasn't the broken woman he dumped at the shelter anymore. She was a Caldwell, and she had power he couldn't imagine. "Hello, Derek," Natalie said calmly. "Surprised to see me?" "Natalie, baby, thank God." Derek's face transformed into desperate pleading. "These cops are crazy. I didn't do anything. Tell them this is all a mistake." "The mistake was yours," Natalie said. "You thought I was nobody. You thought I had no family, no resources, no way to fight back. You were wrong. I don't understand. How did you?" "My grandfather sends his regards," Natalie interrupted. "Harrison Caldwell. Maybe you've heard of him?" Derek's face went from pale to gray. "Caldwell? As in Caldwell Industries?" "That's right. The billionaire grandfather I never knew I had until you dumped me at that shelter. Funny how things work out." Veronica started crying. "Derek, you said she had nothing. You said she was a nobody." "Shut up." Derek hissed at her. "No, please let her talk," Patricia said with a smile. "Veronica, did Derek tell you he was married when he started dating you?" Veronica nodded miserably. "He said he was getting divorced. He said his wife was crazy and controlling. He said once the divorce was final, we'd be together and I'd never have to work again." "How romantic," Patricia said dryly. "Did he also tell you about the credit cards he opened in his wife's name to buy you gifts? Or the money he stole? Or the part where he drugged her and abandoned her at a homeless shelter?" "He what?" Veronica's eyes went wide with horror. She looked at Derek with dawning realization. "Derek, you said she left on her own. You said she walked out." "Don't listen to them," Derek shouted. "They're lying." "We have video footage," Jerome said, appearing beside Patricia with his tablet. He showed Veronica the security footage from Haven House. Derek dragging an unconscious Natalie to the shelter door. Derek driving away, laughing with Veronica visible in the passenger seat. Veronica burst into fresh tears. Oh God, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know he drugged you." "But you knew he was married," Natalie said flatly. "You knew he was stealing from his wife. You laughed while he dumped me at a shelter. You're just as guilty." The officers pulled Derek to his feet. He stared at Natalie with a mix of rage and disbelief. "You can't do this. I'll fight the charges." "Oh. You'll go to prison," Patricia interrupted. "The evidence is overwhelming. My firm represents Miss Caldwell, and we have resources you can't begin to match. Every crime you committed, every lie you told, every dollar you stole, it's all documented. You're done, Derek." As the officers led Derek toward the police car, he turned back one last time. "Natalie, please. I'm sorry. I made mistakes, but I still love you. Don't do this to me." Natalie looked at the man she'd once promised to love forever. She saw him clearly now, not as a husband or partner, but as a predator who'd targeted her carefully and hurt her deliberately. "I'm not doing anything to you, Derek," she said quietly. "I'm just making sure you face consequences for what you did. You tried to destroy me. Instead, you saved me. If you hadn't dumped me at that shelter, I never would have found my family. I never would have discovered who I really am. So in a way, thank you." Derek's face crumpled as the reality sank in. He'd destroyed his own life trying to destroy hers, and now he had nothing while she had everything. The police cars pulled away with Derek and Veronica inside. Patricia turned to Natalie with approval. "You handled that perfectly," she said. "You were strong and dignified. He expected you to crumble, and instead you stood tall." "I'm still shaking," Natalie admitted. "That's normal," Harrison said, putting an arm around her shoulders. "You just confronted your abuser. But you did it with a team behind you and power in your corner. Derek will never hurt you again." As they walked back to Harrison's car, Natalie felt something like closure settling over her. The man who tried to make her feel worthless had just seen her backed by lawyers, police, and a billionaire grandfather. Derek's last glimpse of her hadn't been as a victim, but as a woman who'd fought back and won. The battle wasn't over. There would be trials and legal proceedings and probably more painful revelations about Derek's lies. But the important part was already done. Derek knew he'd lost. And Natalie knew she'd survived. A week after Derek's arrest, Harrison asked Natalie to have breakfast with him in his private office. The room overlooked the city from the 62nd floor of the Caldwell Industries building, with walls of windows showing the urban landscape stretching to the horizon. "I want to show you something," Harrison said, gesturing to a leather-bound folder on his desk. "But first, I need to ask you a question. What do you want to do with your life now?" Natalie had been thinking about this question constantly. "I don't know. Derek always said I wasn't smart enough for college. He convinced me I should just stay home and take care of him. I started to believe it. Harrison's expression hardened. Derek was systematically destroying your confidence. That's what abusers do. They diminish their victims so thoroughly that escape seems impossible. But Natalie, your mother graduated high school at 15 and got into Harvard at 16. You have her genes, her intelligence. Derek's lies don't define your abilities. I barely graduated high school, Natalie said quietly. I was in foster care, moving between homes. School wasn't a priority when I was just trying to survive. Then we start now, Harrison said firmly. He opened the folder and showed her a document. This is an academic assessment report. I had my people research your school records. Your grades were actually quite good when you had stable housing. Your teachers noted that you were bright but distracted. With the right support and environment, you could accomplish anything. Natalie stared at the report, seeing her potential laid out in black and white. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting you consider college. Or vocational training. Or business school. Whatever interests you. Caldwell Industries will pay for it, and you'll have tutors and support every step of the way. You're only 25, Natalie. Your life is just beginning. I don't even know what I'm good at, Natalie admitted. Harrison smiled. Then let's find out. Come with me. He led her out of his office and down the hall to a conference room where several people waited. Harrison introduced them as department heads from various divisions of Caldwell Industries: technology, real estate, pharmaceuticals, charity foundations. I've asked each of them to give you a brief overview of what they do, Harrison explained. Consider this an introduction to the family business. You don't have to choose anything today. Just listen and see what sparks your interest. For the next 3 hours, Natalie listened to presentations about everything from drug development to affordable housing initiatives to AI research. She asked questions hesitantly at first, then with growing confidence as she realized no one was judging her lack of knowledge. The Charity Foundation director, a woman named Priya Kapoor, particularly captured Natalie's attention. We focus on domestic violence prevention and survivor support, Priya explained. We fund shelters, legal aid, job training programs, and advocacy initiatives. Last year, we helped over 15,000 women escape abusive situations. Like Haven House? Natalie asked. Haven House is one of our partner organizations, Priya confirmed. We've supported them for 8 years. They do incredible work with limited resources. After the presentations ended, Harrison walked Natalie back to his office. What did you think? The charity work, Natalie said immediately. The domestic violence programs. I want to know more about that. I thought you might, Harrison said with satisfaction. You have a personal connection to that cause, and personal passion makes for powerful advocacy. Priya would be happy to mentor you if you're interested. But I don't have any experience. I don't have a degree. What could I possibly contribute? Harrison turned to face her directly. You have something more valuable than a degree. You have lived experience. You know what it's like to be vulnerable and afraid. You know what it's like to need help. That empathy, that understanding, that's what makes great advocacy work meaningful instead of just theoretical. Over the following weeks, Natalie began working with Priya. She started by volunteering at Haven House, using her newfound resources to improve the shelter's facilities. She funded a new security system, upgraded the kitchen, hired additional counselors. But more than that, she talked to the women there. She listened to their stories and shared her own. She saw herself in their faces, the fear, the shame, the desperate hope that life could be better. You give them something I can't, Dorothy told Natalie one afternoon. You give them proof that survival is possible. That the man who hurt you doesn't get to write the ending to your story. Natalie also started taking classes. Harrison enrolled her in a business program at the local college, but she also took psychology courses to better understand trauma and recovery. For the first time in her life, she had the resources and support to learn, and she discovered that Derek had been wrong about everything. She wasn't stupid. She was actually very smart when given the chance to prove it. You're a natural at strategic thinking, her business professor told her after she aced a complex case study. Have you considered an MBA program? Natalie laughed. 3 months ago, she'd been sleeping in a shelter with nothing. Now a professor was suggesting business school. But the real change was internal. Every day, Natalie felt Derek's voice in her head getting quieter. The criticism, the put-downs, the constant message that she was worthless. It all faded as she built a new identity based on truth instead of lies. She was smart. She was capable. She was valuable. Not because of Harrison's money, but because of who she was choosing to become. One evening, Harrison called her into his office with an unusual expression on his face. "I have a proposition for you," he said. "The board has approved a new position in the company, Director of Survivor Programs. The role would involve expanding our domestic violence work, creating new partnerships, and building programs based on your insights as someone who's lived through this. It would be a real job with real responsibilities, and it would be yours if you want it." Natalie stared at him. "I've only been working with Priya for 2 months. I'm still learning." "And you'll continue learning," Harrison said. "But you already know more about what survivors need than anyone else in this building. You'd have support, Priya would work closely with you, and you'd have a full team. But the vision would be yours. What about college? You'd continue your classes. We'd work around your schedule. Natalie, I'm not asking you to sacrifice your education. I'm offering you a chance to build something meaningful while you learn." Natalie thought about the women at Haven House. She thought about the countless others still trapped in situations like hers had been. She thought about Derek sitting in a jail cell, his power completely gone. "I want to do it," she said. "I want to help other women the way Dorothy and Camille helped me." Harrison smiled broadly. "Then let's get started. Your mother would be so proud of you, Natalie. She chose freedom over wealth, and you're choosing to use wealth to create freedom for others. That's the best of both worlds." The next morning, Natalie walked into Caldwell Industries as an employee for the first time. She had an office on the 41st floor, a dedicated team, and a budget that made her dizzy. But more than that, she had purpose. Derek had tried to make her feel small. Instead, he'd accidentally shown her just how big she could become. Derek's trial was scheduled for a cold Thursday morning in February. Patricia had spent months building an airtight case, and the prosecution was confident. Still, Natalie felt nervous as she walked into the courthouse flanked by Harrison and Patricia. "You don't have to testify if you don't want to," Patricia reminded her. "We have enough evidence to convict without your testimony." "I want to," Natalie said firmly. "I want Derek to hear me tell the truth about what he did." The courtroom was smaller than Natalie expected from TV shows. Derek sat at the defense table with a public defender, looking gaunt and defeated. When Natalie entered, his eyes found her immediately. He looked like he wanted to speak, but his lawyer put a hand on his arm to stop him. Veronica sat in the back of the courtroom, called as a witness for the prosecution. She'd taken a plea deal, agreeing to testify against Derek in exchange for reduced charges. The trial lasted 3 days. The prosecution presented bank records showing Derek systematically draining accounts. Credit card statements showing purchases for Veronica on cards opened in Natalie's name. Medical records proving Natalie had been drugged. Security footage from Haven House showing Derek abandoning his unconscious wife. Derek's defense was weak. His lawyer tried to argue that it was a marital dispute gone wrong, that Derek had been trying to help Natalie by taking her to the shelter. But the evidence demolished that argument. When it was Natalie's turn to testify, she walked to the stand with her head high. The prosecutor, a stern woman named Andrea Shaw, guided her through her statement gently. "Miss Caldwell, can you tell the court what happened on the night of October 15th? "Derek made me tea that night," Natalie began, her voice steady. "He said it would help my headache. I didn't know he'd put drugs in it. Within 20 minutes I couldn't stand up. Everything went fuzzy. He helped me to the car and I thought he was taking me to the hospital." "What did he say during the drive?" Natalie met Derek's eyes across the courtroom. "He said I was worthless, that he'd wasted 3 years on me, that his girlfriend Veronica deserved everything I had. He said no one would look for me because I had no family and no one who cared." "How did that make you feel?" "Terrified. Confused. I kept trying to ask why, but the drugs made it hard to talk. The next thing I remember clearly is waking up in a homeless shelter with my wedding ring gone and all my belongings taken." "What did you think when you realized what Derek had done?" Natalie thought carefully about her answer. "I thought I deserved it. Derek had spent 3 years convincing me I was stupid, useless, and lucky he put up with me. When he threw me away, part of me believed he was right. It took discovering I had family, that I had value Derek never saw, to realize the problem was never me. The problem was always him." Derek's lawyer tried to shake her testimony during cross-examination, suggesting she was lying because of the Caldwell wealth. But Natalie remained calm, answering each question with facts. The DNA evidence, the security footage, the bank records, none of it relied on her word alone. Veronica's testimony was devastating for Derek's case. She admitted that Derek had told her about his plan to get rid of his wife so they could start fresh with Natalie's money and credit. She described how Derek had researched sedatives online, how he'd forged Natalie's signature on loan documents, how he'd laughed about how easy it was to fool someone with no family to protect her. He said she was a foster kid with no connections, Veronica testified tearfully. He said she'd just disappear into the system and no one would care. He said we'd be set up with her credit cards and loans before anyone realized what happened. Did you know he was drugging her? Andrea asked. Not until that night. He told me he was taking her to the shelter. I thought he meant he was dropping her off awake like he was helping her somehow. When I saw she was passed out, I asked what was wrong with her. He said she'd taken sleeping pills. I believed him. Veronica wiped her eyes. I was a fool. I wanted to believe Derek loved me, so I ignored all the warning signs that he was a predator. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. When they returned, the forewoman read the verdict with a clear voice. We find the defendant, Derek Morgan, guilty on all counts. Derek's face crumpled. His lawyer tried to speak to him, but Derek just sat there, staring at nothing. The judge scheduled sentencing for 2 weeks later. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded them. Harrison had wanted to keep the trial quiet, but word had leaked that Harrison Caldwell's newly discovered granddaughter was involved. The story had captured public attention. The billionaire heiress abandoned at a shelter by a husband who didn't know who she really was. Miss Caldwell, how do you feel about the verdict? A reporter called out. Natalie paused, considering her answer. Patricia had coached her on dealing with media, but in that moment, Natalie decided to speak from her heart. I feel relief, she said clearly. Relief that Derek will face consequences for what he did. But more than that, I feel hope. Hope that my story shows other survivors that you can fight back. That you can escape. That the person who hurt you doesn't get to write the ending of your life. Derek tried to destroy me, but instead he led me to discover my family and my strength. I won. He lost. And that's exactly the way it should be. The reporters erupted with more questions, but Harrison guided Natalie to the waiting car. Once inside, he squeezed her hand. You were magnificent, he said. Your mother would be so proud. 2 weeks later, Derek was sentenced to 12 years in prison for assault, fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. Veronica received 3 years for her role in the crimes. As Derek was led away in handcuffs, he looked at Natalie one last time. She met his gaze without flinching, without fear, without any of the submission he'd trained into her. She was a different woman than the one he'd married. She was free. That evening, Natalie stood in her office at Caldwell Industries, looking out at the city lights. She'd come so far from that terrified woman waking up in a shelter. She'd built a life Derek couldn't touch, couldn't ruin, couldn't take away. Her phone buzzed with a text from Priya. Congratulations on the verdict. The team wants to take you to dinner to celebrate. Natalie smiled. She had friends now, real friends who respected her strength instead of trying to diminish it. She had family who supported her growth instead of limiting it. She had work that gave her purpose and meaning. Derek had meant to destroy her. Instead, he'd freed her from a life of lies and led her to a future brighter than she'd ever imagined. That was the best revenge of all. 6 months after Derek's sentencing, Natalie stood in front of the Caldwell Industries board of directors, presenting her comprehensive plan for expanding the company's survivor support programs. The statistics are staggering, Natalie explained, clicking through her presentation. 1 in 4 women will experience domestic violence in their lifetime. But only 34% of those injured by intimate partners receive medical care. What? Because they don't have resources, don't know where to turn, or are too afraid to seek help. She moved to the next slide, showing a map dotted with markers. We currently support 32 shelters across the country. My proposal would expand that to 100 shelters within 3 years, with enhanced services at each location. Legal aid, job training, childcare, mental health counseling, and transitional housing. One board member, an older man named Richard, raised his hand. This is an admirable goal, Ms. Caldwell, but the cost would be substantial. What's the return on investment? Before Natalie could answer, Harrison spoke up from his seat at the head of the table. Richard, if you're looking at survivor support through an ROI lens, you're asking the wrong question. But since you asked, every dollar invested in domestic violence prevention saves society $8 in healthcare, legal, and lost productivity costs. That's an 800% return. Beyond that, we're saving lives and giving people futures. That's priceless. I understand the social benefit, Richard persisted. I'm asking about the company's bottom line. Natalie had anticipated this question. She'd spent weeks preparing for exactly this kind of pushback. Corporate social responsibility directly impacts market performance, she said calmly. Companies with strong CSR programs see an average 13% increase in brand loyalty and a 17% increase in consumer trust. Caldwell Industries is already known for pharmaceutical innovation and real estate development. Adding a reputation as a leader in social justice makes us attractive to investors, employees, and consumers who value corporate ethics. She clicked to another slide. But beyond market considerations, there's a talent argument. Women make up half the workforce. Creating programs that support survivors means supporting our employees. It means the brilliant engineer who's being abused by her husband doesn't have to choose between her safety and her career. It means the talented analyst who's escaping violence has resources to rebuild. We're not just helping strangers, we're investing in our own people. The board members exchanged glances. Priya, sitting beside Natalie as a consultant, added, "Since Natalie launched our pilot survivor employment program 6 months ago, we've hired 23 women who came through partner shelters. All of them are still employed, many have been promoted, and their performance reviews are outstanding. When you give people a real chance, they take it." Richard nodded slowly. "I see your point. But this is still a significant expansion. Which is why I'm proposing we phase it over 3 years, Natalie said. Year 1 focuses on the legal aid and job training. Year 2 adds mental health and childcare. Year 3 implements transitional housing. This gives us time to assess, adjust, and ensure quality at each stage." The board voted. The proposal passed with overwhelming support. As Natalie left the boardroom, Harrison caught up with her in the hallway. "You handled Richard perfectly," he said with pride. "He's been on this board for 20 years and he doesn't like change. But you presented facts, anticipated objections, and showed him the business case alongside the human case. That's exactly how you win over skeptics." "I was terrified," Natalie admitted. "You didn't show it. That's what matters. You're becoming a real leader, Natalie. Not because of your last name, but because you've put in the work to earn respect." The expansion program launched that fall. Natalie threw herself into the work, visiting shelters across the country, meeting with survivors and listening to what they needed most. She hired a diverse team of advocates, social workers, and program managers. Together they built something bigger than Natalie had imagined. But the work was also emotionally draining. Every story she heard echoed her own experience. Every woman who'd been told she was worthless, who'd been isolated from family, who'd been made to believe she deserved the abuse. Natalie saw herself in all of them. "You need to talk to someone," Priya told her gently after Natalie broke down crying during a particularly difficult shelter visit. "You're doing incredible work, but you're also processing your own trauma while helping others process theirs. That's not sustainable without support." Natalie started therapy. Her counselor, Dr. Sharon Baptiste, was a calm woman in her 50s who specialized in trauma recovery. At first, Natalie resisted, insisting she was fine, she'd moved on, Derek's abuse was in the past. "Moving on doesn't mean the wounds don't need attention," Dr. Baptiste said during their 3rd session. "You survived something terrible, Natalie. You escaped and built a new life. But healing isn't the same as succeeding. You can accomplish amazing things and still carry pain that needs addressing." Slowly, Natalie began unpacking the 3 years with Derek. Not just the drugging and abandonment, but the slower, subtler damage. The constant criticism that had eroded her confidence. The isolation that had cut her off from potential support. The way Derek had rewritten reality to make her question her own perceptions. "I still hear his voice sometimes," Natalie admitted in one session. "When I'm about to present to the board or meet with donors or speak at events, I hear Derek saying I'm too stupid to handle it. That I'll embarrass myself. That I should just be quiet and let smarter people talk." "What do you do when you hear that voice?" Dr. Baptiste asked. "I ignore it. I push through and do the thing anyway." "That's good. But what if instead of just ignoring it, you actively challenged it? What if when Derek's voice says you're stupid, you reminded yourself of evidence that proves him wrong?" It became Natalie's practice. When Derek's voice told her she couldn't handle a difficult meeting, she reminded herself she'd won over a skeptical board. When he whispered that she was worthless, she thought about the hundreds of women whose lives had improved because of her programs. When he tried to convince her no one would want her, she remembered Harrison's tears when they first met, Dorothy's kindness at the shelter, Priya's mentorship, her team's loyalty. The voice grew quieter. Not gone, maybe it would never be entirely gone, but manageable. Derek's lies had less power every day. One evening, Natalie visited Haven House for a fundraising event. The shelter looked completely different from her first night there. New furniture, fresh paint, updated facilities, all funded by Caldwell Industries. But more than the physical changes, the atmosphere felt different. There was hope there now, tangible and real. Dorothy pulled Natalie aside after the event. I need to tell you something. The night Derek brought you here, I wasn't sure you'd make it. You looked so broken, so lost. I've seen that look before, and sometimes those women never recover. But you did more than recover. You transformed your pain into purpose. You took the worst thing that ever happened to you and used it to help thousands of people. That's the definition of resilience. Natalie hugged Dorothy tightly. You saved my life that night. You believed me when I had no reason to be believed. You helped me when I had nothing to offer in return. I'll never forget that. And I'll never forget watching you rise, Dorothy said with tears in her eyes. You're proof that our work matters, that one act of kindness can change everything. As Natalie drove home that night in the car Harrison had given her, she thought about how far she'd come. Not just materially, though yes, she'd gone from homeless to wealthy in less than a year. But internally, she'd rebuilt herself from the ground up. She wasn't the woman Derek had married. That woman had been shaped by foster care and survival, vulnerable and desperate for stability. She'd been easy for Derek to manipulate because she'd wanted so badly to believe someone loved her. But she wasn't that woman anymore. She was Natalie Caldwell, director of survivor programs, advocate for the vulnerable, granddaughter to a man who'd spent decades searching for her. She was educated, confident, and surrounded by people who respected her strength instead of trying to break it. Derek had tried to destroy her. Instead, he'd accidentally shown her who she really was. Strong, capable, unstoppable. And she was just getting started. Spring brought changes to Natalie's life that had nothing to do with work. She'd been so focused on building programs and processing trauma that she'd barely noticed how much her social circle had expanded. She had real friends now, people who liked her for who she was rather than what she could provide. Priya invited Natalie to her daughter's college graduation. Camille from the shelter asked Natalie to be her +1 at a charity gala. Her therapy group included 3 women who'd become close friends, meeting for coffee every Saturday to talk about their healing journeys. And then there was Camden. Natalie met Camden Rivers at a legal aid conference in March. He was a human rights attorney who specialized in domestic violence cases, representing survivors in court pro bono. He'd approached Natalie after her keynote speech to express his admiration for Caldwell Industries survivor programs. Your work is changing lives, Camden said, shaking her hand. I represent women every day who have nowhere to turn. The fact that you're building this support infrastructure, making it systematic instead of random, it's going to revolutionize how survivors rebuild. Camden was handsome in an understated way, with kind eyes and an easy smile. But what struck Natalie most was how he listened. Really listened, without interrupting or trying to steer the conversation back to himself. They exchanged contact information, ostensibly to discuss potential partnerships between his legal aid organization and her programs. But over the following weeks, their professional emails grew more personal. Camden asked about her recovery journey. Natalie asked about his work. They discovered shared interests, old movies, Thai food, hiking. Would you want to grab dinner sometime? Camden asked finally, after 3 weeks of increasingly friendly emails. Not a business meeting. Just dinner. Natalie's first instinct was to say no. She wasn't ready for dating. She'd been out of her marriage less than a year. She was still processing Derek's betrayal. But Dr. Baptiste had been encouraging her to stay open to new experiences. Healing doesn't mean shutting yourself off from connection, her therapist had said. It means being intentional about what kinds of connections you form and with whom. Dinner sounds nice, Natalie replied. Their first date was at a quiet Thai restaurant, nothing fancy or formal. Camden showed up in jeans and a button-down shirt, holding a small bouquet of wildflowers. I almost brought roses, he admitted, but then I thought that felt too formal for a first date. These reminded me of your speech about resilience. Wildflowers grow anywhere, even in difficult soil. It was such a thoughtful gesture that Natalie felt her carefully constructed walls crack slightly. Over dinner, Camden asked about her work but also about her interests, her opinions, her dreams. He talked about his own background, growing up in a working-class family, putting himself through law school, choosing human rights work over corporate law despite the pay difference. Why domestic violence specifically? Natalie asked. Camden's expression grew somber. My sister was in an abusive marriage. I was in law school at the time and I didn't know how to help her. By the time she finally left, she'd lost everything. Her confidence, her savings, almost her life. I couldn't save her marriage, but I could help other women escape before it got that bad. Did she recover? She did. It took years and she's still dealing with PTSD, but she's remarried now to someone kind. She has 2 kids and runs her own business. But it was a long road and she didn't have the resources you're building. That's why your work matters so much. Natalie found herself sharing her own story. Not just the facts of Derek's betrayal, but the emotional journey of recovery. Camden listened without judgment, without trying to fix anything, without making her trauma about him. "You're incredibly brave," Camden said when she finished. "Not just for surviving but for turning your experience into something that helps others. A lot of people would have taken Harrison's money and disappeared from public life. You chose to fight." "I didn't feel like I had a choice," Natalie admitted. "How could I have all these resources and not use them to help?" "That's exactly my point. You had a choice. You could have chosen comfort and privacy. You chose purpose instead." As Camden walked Natalie to her car after dinner, he didn't try to kiss her or push for another date. He simply said, "I'd really like to see you again if you're interested." No pressure, no expectations. Just more time getting to know each other. "I'd like that," Natalie said, surprising herself with how much she meant it. Over the following months, Natalie and Camden's relationship developed slowly. He never pushed for more than she was ready to give. He respected her boundaries, understood when she needed space, and celebrated her successes without trying to take credit. "He's good for you," Priya observed after meeting Camden at a work event. "He sees you as a whole person, not just a trauma survivor or a billionaire heiress. That's rare." The contrast with Derek couldn't have been more stark. Derek had isolated Natalie, controlled her, diminished her. Camden encouraged her independence, supported her ambitions, and treated her as an equal. When Natalie had a bad day, Derek would have told her she was overreacting. Camden would ask how he could help. But Natalie was also careful not to rush anything. She'd learned from Derek that what looks like love can sometimes be manipulation. She watched how Camden treated service workers, how he spoke about his ex-girlfriends, how he handled stress and disappointment. All the warning signs she'd missed with Derek, she paid attention to now. Camden passed every test. He was kind to strangers, spoke respectfully about his past relationships, and handled frustration without lashing out. Most importantly, he had his own full life. His legal practice, his friends, his hobbies, and didn't need Natalie to complete him. "I think I'm falling for you," Camden admitted 6 months into their relationship. "But I need you to know something. I'll wait as long as you need. If you're not ready for a serious relationship, I understand. Your healing comes first." Natalie felt tears prick her eyes. "You're very different from my ex-husband." "Good. He was an abuser and a criminal. I'm planning to be much better than that." Camden smiled, then grew serious. "But really, Natalie, I mean it. There's no timeline here. We move at your pace or we don't move at all." That same month, Harrison's health began to decline. A routine checkup revealed concerning test results, and suddenly Natalie faced the possibility of losing the grandfather she'd only just found. "The doctors are optimistic," Harrison said from his hospital bed, looking frighlier than Natalie had ever seen him. "But I'm 78 years old. I've had a good life. If this is my time, I'm ready." "Don't talk like that," Natalie said fiercely. "You promised me we'd have years together. You promised to teach me everything about running the company." Harrison reached for her hand. "And I've kept that promise. Look at you, Natalie. You don't need me to succeed. You've built something incredible with the survivor programs. You've earned the respect of the board, the loyalty of your team, and the admiration of thousands of people. You did that, not me." "But I need you," Natalie whispered. "I just found you. I can't lose you already." "You won't lose me," Harrison said gently. "Even if I die tomorrow, you won't lose me. I'll always be your grandfather. I'll always be proud of you. And you'll always have the strength I've watched you develop this past year. You're a Caldwell, Natalie. That means you're a survivor." Harrison's treatment was successful, but the health scare changed things for Natalie. She realized how precious time was, how quickly circumstances could shift. She'd wasted 3 years with Derek, believing his lies about her worth. She'd spent months after his arrest focused entirely on work and recovery. But life was about more than survival. It was about joy, connection, meaning. It was about building a future instead of just escaping the past. "I love you," Natalie told Camden one evening as they watched the sunset from her apartment balcony. "I'm not saying it because I think I should or because you want to hear it. I'm saying it because it's true. You make me happy in a way I didn't think was possible." Camden's face lit up with pure joy. "I love you too. I have for months, but I wanted to wait until you were ready to hear it." "I'm ready," Natalie said. I'm ready for whatever comes next. 2 years after Derek abandoned Natalie at Haven House, she stood in front of that same shelter on a crisp October morning. But this time she wasn't arriving as a victim. She was cutting the ribbon on the shelter's newly expanded wing, funded entirely by the Natalie Caldwell Foundation. This expansion doubles our capacity, Dorothy announced to the crowd of donors, community leaders, and survivors. We can now house 40 women and children with dedicated spaces for legal consultations, job training, and therapy. None of this would be possible without Natalie's vision and generosity. Natalie stepped to the microphone, looking out at the assembled crowd. She saw familiar faces, Priya and her team from Caldwell Industries, Camille the social worker who'd first helped her, Dr. Baptiste her therapist, Camden holding a bouquet of wildflowers. And next to Camden stood Harrison, recovered from his health crisis and beaming with pride. 2 years ago, I woke up on a bed in this shelter with no memory of how I got here, Natalie began. I had no money, no phone, no identification. My husband had drugged me and dumped me here, thinking he'd destroyed my life. He was wrong. She paused, letting the weight of that statement settle. Derek Morgan tried to make me disappear, but instead he led me to discover who I really was. He led me to find my family, my purpose, and my strength. Every day, women arrive at shelters like this one believing the lies their abusers told them. That they're worthless. That they deserve the abuse. That they have nowhere to go and no one to help them. I'm here to say those lies have no power. You are not worthless. You don't deserve abuse. And you have an entire community ready to help you rebuild. The crowd applauded. Natalie continued, the Natalie Caldwell Foundation will invest $50 million over the next 5 years in survivor support programs nationwide. We're building transitional housing, funding legal aid, creating job training partnerships, and expanding mental health services. But more than that, we're building hope. We're showing survivors that they can escape, they can recover, and they can thrive. After the ribbon cutting, Natalie toured the new facilities with Dorothy. They walked through bright, clean rooms with comfortable beds, a state-of-the-art kitchen, private consultation spaces, even a small playground for children. You've transformed this place, Dorothy said, wiping away tears. When you first arrived here, I hoped you'd survive. I never imagined you'd come back like this. I had to come back, Natalie said. You saved my life, Dorothy. You and Camille believed me when I had nothing. You showed me that strangers could be kind, that not everyone wanted to hurt me. I carry that with me every day. The party continued into the evening. Natalie mingled with donors and survivors, telling her story over and over, watching as hope sparked in the eyes of women who thought they had no future. As the sun set, Camden found Natalie on the shelter's back porch, looking out at the city lights. Tired? He asked, slipping his arm around her waist. Exhausted, Natalie admitted. But happy. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, doing exactly what I'm meant to do. Camden turned to face her, suddenly serious. I have something I need to ask you, but I want to be clear about something first. What I'm about to do, I'm doing because I love you and want to build a life with you. Not because I think you need rescuing, or because I want to control you, or for any reason except that I believe we're better together than apart. If you say no, I'll wait. If you say you're not ready, I'll understand. Your timeline, your choice, always. He pulled a small box from his pocket and knelt on the porch. Natalie Caldwell, will you marry me? Natalie looked down at Camden, this good man who'd respected her boundaries, supported her healing, and loved her without trying to diminish her. She thought about Derek and how different this felt. Derek's proposal had been rushed and overwhelming, designed to lock her in before she could think clearly. Camden's proposal was patient and clear, offering her a choice with no pressure. Yes, Natalie said, her voice strong and certain. But I need you to understand something too. I won't be the wife I was with Derek. I won't give up my career or my independence. I won't let anyone make me small again, even someone who loves me. I don't want you small, Camden said, standing and sliding the ring onto her finger. I want you exactly as you are, brilliant, fierce, strong, and independent. That's the woman I fell in love with. They kissed as the sun set over the city, two survivors who'd found each other and chosen to build something real. The engagement made headlines, much to Natalie's dismay. Billionaire heiress to marry human rights lawyer, proclaimed the papers, complete with photos from the ribbon cutting. But Natalie had learned to handle media attention. She gave a brief statement emphasizing her work and Camden's practice, then returned to focusing on what mattered. The wedding was planned for the following spring, small and intimate, with only close friends and family. Not the elaborate society affair people expected, but a genuine celebration of two people choosing partnership. In the meantime, Natalie's work continued to expand. The foundation launched programs in 12 new cities. Caldwell Industries became known as a leader in corporate social responsibility. Natalie received awards and recognition, speaking at conferences and influencing policy. But her proudest moment came on a random Tuesday afternoon, when a young woman approached her after a shelter visit. "Miss Caldwell, I just wanted to thank you," the woman said shyly. "I left my husband 6 months ago. He told me I couldn't make it on my own, that I'd end up homeless and broken. But your foundation helped me get legal aid, job training, and housing. I start a new job next week as a paralegal. You were right, he lied about everything." Natalie hugged the woman tightly. "You did this yourself. You had the courage to leave, to rebuild, to believe in yourself despite his lies. I just provided resources. You provided the strength. These moments made everything worthwhile. Every board meeting, every fundraising call, every painful testimony, it all mattered because it helped women like this young woman escape and survive." One evening, Natalie sat with Harrison in his penthouse office, reviewing the foundation's annual report. The numbers were staggering. 2,300 women served, 1,800 children provided with safe housing, 950 women employed through job training programs, 1,200 legal cases supported. "Your mother would be so proud," Harrison said quietly. "She ran from wealth because she didn't want it to control her. You're using wealth to give others freedom. That's the best possible legacy." "I wish I'd known her," Natalie said. "She knew you even if only for 7 years. And she made the most important choice of her life. She chose you over everything. That kind of love shapes a person, Natalie. Even if you don't remember all of it, it's part of who you are." Natalie thought about her mother's sacrifice, about the difficult life Rebecca had chosen to protect her daughter. "I hope I'm making choices that would make her proud." "Every day," Harrison assured her. "Every single day." As spring approached, Natalie prepared for her wedding while also launching the foundation's biggest initiative yet. A national advocacy campaign pushing for stronger domestic violence laws and better funding for survivor services. "You're doing too much," Camden teased as they went over wedding plans while Natalie simultaneously reviewed policy proposals. "I'm doing exactly the right amount," Natalie countered with a smile. The wedding day arrived sunny and perfect. Natalie wore a simple but elegant dress, nothing like the expensive gown she'd imagined in her first marriage. This time she knew what mattered. Not the dress or the flowers or the venue, but the person standing across from her, promising partnership instead of possession. Harrison walked her down the aisle, tears streaming down his face. As he placed her hand in Camden's, he whispered, "You found it, Natalie. You found the love your mother wanted for you, the kind that sets you free instead of caging you." The ceremony was brief and heartfelt. Natalie and Camden wrote their own vows, promising honesty, respect, independence, and support. When the officiant pronounced them married, the small gathering of friends and family erupted in applause. At the reception, Dorothy proposed a toast. "To Natalie, who showed us all that survival is just the beginning. To new beginnings, second chances, and the power of choosing yourself." As Natalie danced with Camden under string lights, she caught sight of her reflection in a nearby window. She barely recognized the confident, joyful woman looking back. She wasn't the scared foster kid Derek had married. She wasn't even the broken woman Derek had abandoned at the shelter. She was Natalie Caldwell, survivor, advocate, granddaughter, wife, and fighter. She'd taken the worst moment of her life and transformed it into purpose. She'd turned pain into power, trauma into triumph. Somewhere, in a prison cell, Derek sat with the consequences of his cruelty. He'd meant to destroy her, but he'd accidentally set her free. And Natalie had built something far better than the life Derek had tried to take from her. She'd built something real. As the evening ended and Natalie prepared to leave for her honeymoon, she took one last look at the celebration. All these people, Harrison, Dorothy, Camille, Priya, her team, the survivors she'd helped, they represented the life she'd built from nothing. A life Derek couldn't touch, couldn't ruin, couldn't take away. She'd won. Not just in court, not just in business, but in the way that mattered most. She'd reclaimed herself and she'd used that power to help others do the same. That was the victory Derek could never understand, and the revenge he'd never see coming.